and welcome to West Country Wanderings. Welcome to another one in my railway series. In fact, it's one in my Lost Railway Walks series. This is going to be a little bit different. It's not a conventional Lost Railway Walks, far from it. It's not from the book that I've spoken about previously, but it all starts with a dream and the contour of the lines between dreams and reality. I'll explain more. The story for this video starts way back in 1986. In 1986, I found myself near here at RAF Hereford. I'll just give you a little background. At the time I joined the Air Force in 1981, and I was waiting to be promoted to the rank of corporal. Now, in order to do that, you have to pass certain examinations and tests and go on various courses. One of the courses brought me here to RAF Hereford, and it was a supervisor and management course. It was lots of classroom work, and obviously you can learn about the theory of managing people, managing issues and problems, but that doesn't build what happens in the real world. So they decided to send us on an outdoor exercise. Now, though my trade wasn't directly involved in field military operations, the exercise was run by the RAF regiment and, wait for this, the SAS. I'll mention the SAS in a bit. And one of the things that the RAF regiment decided to do to us poor people that were technicians, I was a radar technician in the Air Force, was to not only put us through our management paces, but also give us some sleep deprivation. Now, the sleep deprivation part of this story is rather important for reasons I mentioned at the beginning. For a long time now, on that exercise, I remembered very hazily, because bearing in mind I hadn't had sleep for, I think it was something like 48 hours. I remember guarding a position which was in effect a railway platform. On the railway platform were some old railway buildings, and in the siding were some railway trucks which the RAF regiment and the SAS used to practice on. Now, I knew that these sidings were near RAF Hereford. RAF Hereford closed in the middle of the 1990s, I believe, possibly end of 1990s, and the site is now the headquarters of the aforementioned SAS. We'll be going near to their site, so don't worry, I won't be filming anywhere near it, so there's nothing, I'm not breaking the official secrets out about anything here. I knew it was somewhere in this area. For some time, I actually thought those sidings were a place called Moreton-on-Lug, which sits on the railway line between Hereford and Shrewsbury, known as the Welsh Marches Line. But recently I've been digging around and finding that no, that was too far away from the former RAF Hereford site. So I've come here to a place called Credenhill. Now, sometimes RAF Hereford was also known as RAF Credenhill. And near Credenhill was a railway line. And it was the former line that ran from Hereford to Hay-on-Wye and to Brecon, so right outside of the West Country Wanderings region into Wales properly. Although it's interesting to note at this point that the station at Hay-on-Wye, now famous for its bookshops of course, was actually in England. And please drop a comment below if you know of any other railway station which is in a different country to the town or city that it serves, because I've not come across that before. And if I have time today, we'll see if we can visit the site of Hay-on-Wye station. I'm not making any promises, I don't think there's there much to see. What I'm hoping to do in the video today though is see what I can to trace part of the route of the railway line and see if we can find anything of those sidings that I remembered in the dim and distant past in the 1980s in a very sleep deprived haze. So now, having given you that very long introduction to today's Lost Railway Walks video here on West Country Wanderings, I'll tell you exactly where we are. Well, we're in Herefordshire, of course, because we're talking about RAF, the former RAF Hereford. We're actually not that far from the city of Hereford, which is almost in the centre of the county of Herefordshire, and we're about 4 or 5 miles to the west of Hereford city. You might be able to hear a road, that's a busy road. That is the road that takes you down to the town of Brecon in Wales. In fact, over there on the distance, you can make out the range at the the beacons there, the Brecon beacons and the Black Mountains. So yeah, that's obviously outside of my remit, if you like, of the area that I cover here on the channel. I'm also parked near a little village called Stretton Sugwas. So this is going to be a circular walk. I'll put up maps now so show you the walk that I intended to be doing. And you'll also see that there's a large lake. Now that lake is actually a quarry. There was a former quarry there which belongs, rather strangely, you'll probably surprised to know, I certainly was, it belongs to the Duchy of Cornwall, Duchy of Cornwall land there. Quarry is no longer used, it's now a nature reserve. There's no right of way, however there is an access path which you are allowed to use when the gate is open. The gate is open, so if I've got time, we'll see if we can see part of that lake here. Anyway, we're going to continue along this way. Now there's a few things to see in this video apart from railway things. I don't think there's going to be much to let you know in terms of railway structure, but what I will be doing is giving you the history of this fascinating line here in Herefordshire as we go on our walk, and if I can find some old photographs I'll insert them as we go. But yes, so we're walking to Credenhill, and on the way to Credenhill we pass through the site of a Roman town. Often I can say that. And the town was called Magnus. It actually lies on a Roman road. In fact, I think the Roman road is almost parallel to the route of the railway line. We're also in the Wye Valley. The River Wye is about half a mile over in that direction as well, so that's giving you bearings of where we are today. So let's go and have a explore the history, this fascinating line which doesn't get heard of or covered much on YouTube. Now the history of this line starts off with the town of Hay-on-Wye. As I say, it is just a little bit outside of my area, just across the border into Wales, just outside of Herefordshire, which, as you know, I do cover on my channel. And historically, Hay-on-Wye relied on the River Wye to bring in goods and export them out of the town. However, in dry spells when the water level in the River Wye was low, it struggled with that. So two things happened. One of them was a canal and the other one was a tramway. The tramway was passed by an Act of Parliament as early as 1811. So it was a placeway with trucks that were pulled by horses. Now the canal was the Brecknock and Abergavenny Canal. It's a canal I've not come across before, but in terms of Hay-on-Wye it was a bit of a disadvantage because it only arrived at the nearby hamlet of Watton. I don't think it's got any connection to the existing Mon and Breck Canal, which has a fabulous walk in the town of Brecon. But yes, so the tramway was of real importance to the town of Hay. Now the tramway was complete as early as 1816, just 5 years after the Act of Parliament was passed. In 1818 it was extended to the town, or rather village should I say, of Erdesley here in Herefordshire, just a few miles away from where I currently am. The route they chose from Brecon to Hay-on-Wye needed to go through a tunnel. I don't know if any of that survives, to say it is out of my area of exploration, but it was the cheaper of two routes, I believe. And yeah, so it had a tunnel on it, and I think it was about 24 miles from Brecon to Hay along the tramway. Now technology is always improving, of course, and by the middle of the 19th century tramways were a bit of old hat technology. There were some other schemes promoted, including one from the Leominster direction, but that failed to raise any capital. On the 8th of August 1859, however, an act was passed to build a railway line between Hereford, Hay and Brecon, and some £250,000 was raised to build the railway some 34 miles long. We diverge away from the railway history for the moment. Behind me here is Lady Southampton's chapel. What an imposing building that is. It's now a private residence. I don't know the history of that. So we're just outside the village of Credenhill, and there's another farmhouse by there called the Walls, and the Walls in the name of that farmhouse refers to the Roman walls, which are just in front of me here in this little hamlet of Kenchester. So let's see if we can pop in to see what remains of the Roman town of Magnus. So I've now gone through the wall, which is effectively a hedge, and it would have been here where the site of the Roman town of Magnus once was, lying on the Roman road. Now I'm not entirely sure what Roman road that went to and from. At a guess, I'm thinking something to do with Wroxeter. If you cast your mind back and you've been following my 7 Way series, around Shrewsbury I visited English heritage site called Wroxeter, which was an extensive Roman town. And where I've come from in Gloucestershire was also a Roman city, Glevum. And I'm just wondering if the Roman road went out of Gloucester. And it certainly does to some extent, because it is the road that goes between this kind of direction and the town of Lempster, very straight road, which is the present day A417. So maybe Magnus was like a staging post between Glevum, Gloucester, and Wroxeter. If I can find any more information on that, I will put that in the usual way. But here, this field is on a raised site above the housing, which is back there. Got some workmen there looking at I think it's the National Grid electricity supply, so I hope everybody's got power or they can sort it if they haven't got it currently. When we're making our way down here now, I can see two great big towers, crane towers, and I think that is to do with the building of the SAS barrack site. If you look at it on Google Satellite, you'll see just how enormous the army site is there, which was the previous RAF Hereford. When I was there at RAF Hereford in the 80s, it was a bit of a ramshackle site. There was no airfield there. It was never a place where the RAF flew planes, but it does have a link to our railway series, as I'll mention later in the video. And so that was used there, and as I say, now it's the SAS site, and there's lots of building work still going on around there. I will need to be careful filming around that area, but we should be well away from the perimeter fence. Now, I don't know much about the Roman town of Magnus here, and as I say, it's just a field here which is on slightly raised ground with the embankments, which you can still just make out, but there's no original walls in place. I do know that Time Team from the Channel 4, excellent Channel 4 archaeology series, came here. If I can find a still, or even better, a link to see if that episode's been uploaded on YouTube, although that'll be difficult to find. I will put that in now. And but yeah, so Tony Robinson came here with his crew in 2005, and I'm not sure what they found. They probably found some Roman coins and some other Roman artifact, and no doubt. But there were some photographs on the parish notice board there, which I took a photograph. They are a bit faded, but I'll include them now, so it gives you an indication of the layout of the site and an artist's impression of what it probably would have been looked like. So I'm now about to leave the field where Magnus was behind me, and you can see there that there's a drop. In fact, there's some Canada geese. This is the other side of the Kissing Gate. I'll look a bit closer. Very low-lying land there, so it's going to get a little bit boggy underfoot, no doubt. But yeah, so that embankment there was what would have protected the town. Now, the direction of where we're heading to is over there. That's the village of Credenhill, and the reason I want to go over there, and I say that was the site of RAF Hereford as well, is because that is where there was a station on the line from Hereford to Hay-on-Wye Brecon. In fact, it was the first station out of the city of Hereford. Now, unfortunately, looking across there, it's very wet, it's very low-lying ground. So I'm going to head back through the Kissing Gate, back across the land that was Magnus, and rejoin the country lane and make our way round to Credenhill that way. Now, you can see why the land here has been built up. The Romans weren't daft. We've had a lot of rain. Of course, we're in the Wye Valley floodplain here. That's not the Wye over there, it's a stream or a tributary of the Wye, and it's very, very wet. So because they built it up here, even though we've had very, very heavy rainfall, the ground here is dry-ish. It's a bit muddy, but it's not as muddy as it is over that way. I certainly don't want to do that just for the sake of getting to Credenhill when I could walk along some tarmac, even though it's a bit of a detour, but not that much of a detour. So that's what I'm doing. While I'm doing that, retracing my steps, I'll return to the story of our railway. So our Act of Parliament was back in 1859, and part of the line actually opened in 1862, only a section of it here in Herefordshire, to a place called Morehampton, and that opened for lime and coal traffic. The section from Morehampton to Erdesley, passing through here at Credenhill, opened just a year later in 1863. There was no military base at Credenhill at that time, and it was just to serve the small agricultural community here. I would imagine there would have been a cattle dock, because the main goods here at Credenhill would have been purely for agriculture. The line finally opened completely in September of 1864 with a service of 6 passenger trains a day between Hereford and Brecon and 2 freight trains a day. Not an inconsiderable service for somewhere that is in a very, very rural area indeed. Now, ownership of the line is quite complicated, so I won't give you all the details, and indeed I can't remember them. But I do remember that at the time it was being built, it belonged to the West Midlands Railway. And in 1863, around about the time of complete opening, it amalgamated, yes, you guessed it, a stalwart hero on West Country wanderings, the GWR, the Great Western Railway. Now, while I think to mention it, there was a private station on the line. In fact, it was the next station from here at Credenhill, and it was called Westmore Flag. And I can't seem to find out any more information about this private station, about what it served, why it opened, or indeed why it closed. I can't even seem to find out the exact date of closure, because it closed at a different date to when the line closed in 1962. But if anybody knows anything about the mysterious Westmore Flag station near here, Credenhill in Herefordshire, please drop a comment below. So I don't know if you can see that there, but the road goes up a slight embankment, and that is the site of a bridge over our railway track bed. It's also the site of where Credenhill station once was. So that's the line of our old railway along there. That building actually I believe is a village hall. We'll have a closer look at that. And the cranes are at the former RAF Hereford site. I now think mysteriously it's called, maybe somebody knows the reason for this, Stirling Lines. I don't know the Scottish connection, perhaps it's got some link to army military history. If you do know, please drop a line below. And just in front of this farm building here, there is definitely a railway gate post. So maybe that went into a yard on that side of the road here. Now from this angle here you can definitely make out the incline of the road over the railway. So this is the site of Credenhill station. And our track bed is just down there through that gate. See if we can have a look at that. Our railway went off in that direction there. That would have been in the direction of Hay-on-Wye and Brecon. Really hard to make out that there was ever a railway there, with the stream running alongside on the right hand side. That down there is the village of Credenhill, and in fact most of the people that live in Credenhill now have got some connection to military that work on the very large base. As I say, it's now called Stirling Lines. And they've got the Department of Transport white logo, so they still look after the bridge. I think that stands for probably Hereford, Wye and Brecon, I'd guess. And to the left of that you've got some railway fencing. So the site of the station is now the Credenhill Community Centre, Community Hall, Sports and Social Club and a Resource Centre. And that there is the bridge that would have carried the line between Hay and Brecon and Hereford. Hereford on the left of the screen, Brecon and Hay on the right, underneath the bridge that we just walked over the top of. That's wonderful. So this here is the Yaser Brook Flood Alleviation Scheme. In brackets, Credenhill offtake. It's run by Herefordshire County Council, right next to the social club here. Now looking down in that direction is possibly the site of what I was talking about at the beginning of the video. Now it wasn't at Credenhill station itself, as I say, that is where the buildings are now. Can't find any trace of that apart from the bridge I'm currently standing on. But there are 2 sidings, one of which fed a chemical works which I believe opened around the First World War time, and that'll be down towards Stretton Sugwas where we'll be finishing today's video, so we'll have a look at that. And the other one was a siding that fed not only RAF Hereford but also a Royal Ordnance depot hereabouts, and that would have been on the left. Now I've retraced my step away from the road. That's the social centre there for Credenhill. Now I think from memory, and the reason I mention this is because I'm using the hill there as a reference point. I distinctly remember standing in a field around about here with my SLR rifle, if you remember those, guarding this position, and I do believe it was somewhere over in this area. So I don't think it was anything to do with the chemical works, which if I'll have a look, see if there is anything of that. It's a bit further down in the Stretton Sugwas direction, as I say. And if you look at OS maps, there is one siding, I think it's on a OS map from the 1950s, that is just the other side of where the rail track would have originally been. But if you look at the OS map, you'll see that that siding isn't connected to anything, which is obviously a nonsense. You wouldn't build a siding connected to nothing either end. I do believe there are extensive sidings in this area, and they didn't appear on the OS maps, of course, because they were connected to a very sensitive part of the military, i.e. bombs and weapons, similar to what we've seen on military railway series here on West Country Wanderings. But yeah, so I think it was in this area. I think also because it's now called Stirling Lines after RAF Hereford closed, and they've actually expanded the site now that the SAS there in terms of how big it is. I think now it's encroached on the site of where those sidings were, which they used to use for military training, and which I was guarding back in the 1980s. Now I must admit I'm feeling a little bit goose pimply because I have a feeling that I've been here before. The quarry that I mentioned earlier in the video, excuse the flare here because it's not great light, it's all in the wrong angle, is through the woods over there. That's all I mentioned. I don't believe that I'd ever had any rail connection or was ever rail served, from what I can find out. If you know different, please drop a comment below. But the interesting thing here is this footpath that I've joined, which should join up with the main railway track bed between Hereford and Hay-on-Wye Brecon, is almost railway-like because it started off a very muddy track, almost like a farmer's track. It was very, very muddy indeed. But since I've been walking along it, it's getting wider and it's banked up either side, kind of indicating, you know, railway. So we've got gullies down there, and again, normally why would you put a gully in just to serve a footpath, a very pleasant and very wide footpath? It certainly doesn't look like it was ever a road to anywhere. There's no sign of tarmac, but equally I can find no evidence of any railway on. I can't find any old sleepers or fence posts or anything of that nature, but I'm certainly getting railway vibes off this, and I do seem to remember this. But of course, bearing in mind there would have been rail track down when I was here back in the middle of the 1980s. Now something's just dawned on me, and yes, I've just checked my map, and you're probably already ahead of the game with this. This is very, very straight indeed, isn't it? And there's no tarmac, but there are stones with substantial foundations, and although there may have been a siding on here at one time, thousands of years before that, this was a Roman road, because directly in a straight line back in that direction, it takes us back to Magnus, which we saw earlier in the video there, the Roman town. So this certainly is the Roman road that runs through. As I say, part of it may have been used as a railway, military railway siding coming off the main Hereford Hay line, but this is remnants line. You can see just by how straight it is and the foundations in it. Well, there's absolute privilege to be able to walk on a Roman road that hasn't been tarmacked, and it feels completely untouched by time. But I'm still looking for my railway evidence as we go. And leaping back to railway things again, I think our path diverges away from the line of the Roman road, and there is evidence of a bridge over a stream that once carried our main railway line. On the opposite side of the Roman road is this, which is, well, that's part of Brockhall Quarry, which I say now is a lake, and it is also part of the Duchy of Cornwall lands here in the heart of Herefordshire. So our Roman road continues down in that direction there. Just found a post there, right, but we're going to go that way to join up with the former track bed of the Hereford Hay-on-Wye Brecon Railway. So that's the first substantial bit of railway infrastructure that we've seen on our lost railway, very strange lost railway walk, I must admit. But yes, so this is a bit of infrastructure there with the railway crossed over this little stream here. Let's have a closer look at that. Oh, that's great there. So you can actually see the blue bricks would have been common West Midlands Railway, of course, at the time of construction of this railway line here in Herefordshire. And we've even got some rail there sticking out of the, well, part of that concrete, which was been concrete top to that wall there. Maybe it was redone when the wall was redone to rebank it up following flooding at some point. I'm not sure, but good to see that as well. So looking in that direction, that's looking direct towards the old RAF Hereford side there on the left of the screen. You might be able to make out some housing. That was former married quarters, but all those new green, very large green buildings are all to do with modern day military, nothing to do with the RAF. So there's our bridge over the stream again from a trackside perspective. That's looking back in towards the direction of Hereford. But unfortunately there's no right of way. You can see there's a barbed wire across it. We can't get through there. So I'm going to retrace the steps back to the Roman road and then make my way around to Stretton Sugwas and tell you more about the history of this railway line. Now curiosity got the better of me before I turned to the Roman road. I've just headed back up the railway track bay in the direction of Hay-on-Wye. No, looking back towards the military base. That's not the military base in there, it's another field, which is obviously there's no right of way through there. You can just make out some bricks here, which are remains of a building. I believe that is a railway building. What sort of building, I'm not sure. But then it gets more interesting. Have a look at this. Underneath that there, which is just to the right, or the RAF Hereford side of the railway track bed, if you like, there's a raised bit underneath all that bramble. Was that the platform that I was standing on all those years ago? I'll just head down a bit further, see if we can get any more views of it. So I'm currently standing on the track bed again. I'm looking in the direction of Hay-on-Wye. Hereford is back in that direction, 4 miles away. RAF Hereford was over there, and I think those sidings that I was once guarding were just over here. There's no remains of them now. I can look across there. Obviously that's MOD land over there, so I ain't going over there. There's barbed wire fences here. There is something over there, but of course it's now been completely reused, and I think that was the site of the former ordnance depot, of which I don't know a great deal. I'll put it scrolling along the bottom of the screen now, and I think that was where I was standing all those years ago. Now earlier in the video I think I said that the GWR took over the Midland Railway. Well, things weren't quite as straightforward as that. In fact, the Midland Railway had designs on the Hereford, Hay-on-Wye Brecon line because they wanted to get access to the large South Wales port of Swansea, and they saw it as a good way of doing just that from their line that runs down through the Welsh Marches. The GWR though were very upset about all of this because they had designs doing the same thing. So it came to blocking access in Hereford. They actually closed the gates so the Midland Railway lines couldn't get through to Bars Court, which is the present day Hereford City Railway station. In fact, there was 3 stations in Hereford. Bars Court, the current one, Barton, which is the one that this line used, and there was one other one, I can't remember the name of that, I'll drop that in below, but it actually went to court. It actually went to the Bristol Assizes, and eventually they agreed a financial settlement, and the Midland Railway did actually continue running the line for a while until it was absorbed, grouping days, in 1923. Our railway story isn't over yet here though, because going back to the RAF Hereford bit and the Ordnance Depot, our Roman road has widened, or the site of the Roman road has widened out considerably. That's our quarry over there with that fence over that way. And you've got this gully on that side. The track bed is just over on that side. You can see how it's all things are coming to a connection here. Perhaps this bit here was once a marshalling yard. Again, all of this is speculation because I can't confirm it by going back to the old OS maps, because none of this site appears on it because of military restrictions at the time. There is the Roman road. I'm currently standing on the track bed. I can't film in that direction because that is Lines Place, Sterling Lines. Yeah, so it's actually in here is our track bed, and it's widened out. So I think that this part of it was some kind of marshalling yard for the Ordnance Depot. And I don't think this is the location that I was guarding, but I think this certainly had a connection, a military connection to this track bed here. I'm walking now in the direction of Hereford, very careful not to film that in that direction. And but you can make out lots of sleepers and old rails that are used as fences. Anyway, we're going to continue in this direction, see if I can find any remains of the chemical factory, which also had a siding in this area. General view now, so that's looking back along the track bed towards Hay-on-Wye. Hereford's in front of me. This is the Roman road, but here the Roman road, it's been tarmacked. It's also much wider in width. There's kind of tarmacky and ballasty, so I'm not sure. There's lots of sort of railway stuff around here, and you can see the width of it there. So that's the track bed. that continues down to the Roman road, takes us back to where we came from, but we're going to continue in this direction to see what we can of the chemical bit. And so this here is Brockhill Quarry. I've just come off that Roman road before we complete our walk today back to Stretton Sugwas. I'll complete it at the church, show you that magnificent church. But yeah, so this was the quarry here. I don't believe it was rail connected, but is now owned by the Duchy of Cornwall. And it's very, very deep as well. You don't want to go in there. So I'm sailing well away with slippery banks, so this is as comfortable as I feel getting close to the lake here. So now standing underneath a railway bridge. So we saw the other one, didn't we? We couldn't get close to it because it's the other side of the fence with that social club. But here, yes. The other thing to note here is that the track bed looks like it could have been double track, or maybe the bridge was built for double track dimensions, thinking that they may make it double track at a later date. As far as I'm aware, the whole of the railway line was single track all the way till it joined the other line at, I've forgotten the name of the junction now, but it joined it just north of the town of Brecon. But yeah, so our track bit continues on there. It's not a right of way, so I'll walk for a little bit, but I don't want to go too far because obviously we've got military installations around here, so I have to be rather careful. But what a magnificent bridge though, and that carries, I'll be walking back across the top of the bridge to take us back to my car at Stretton Sugwas. I apologise for the grainy footage, it's very dark in there, but as well as that wonderful bridge, I just walked over the cross of it, so my battery ran out, so I didn't actually film it. But yeah, we've got this carriage here, railway carriage, well, van, I would think, for goods, probably for things like fruit, vegetables on the line. Somebody's been using it as an impromptu garden shelter, but not for many years, alas. So I'm now at the site of the former chemical factory. Just a few things to explain. So I've come round to Stretton Sugwas. You're looking directly on the former track bed, and at this point the railway line went underneath the road. I think it's the Brecon Road. I'll confirm that in the usual way below. So it went straight underneath there, and the other side of the road you can't make out the track bed at all. It's all been completely ploughed out, as these things are. So that's the line of our track bed again, looking back towards the Hay-on-Wye direction. And up there was once a chemical factory. In fact, it's still a secure installation of some kind. Of what, I'm not sure. It's got some large tanks there. Security, CCTV and fences, that sort of thing. I'm not sure if it's military or not. It might be something to do with like an oil terminal, oil underground oil tanks, that sort of thing. But yeah, so I can't film directly over there, but that's where it was. And the chemical factory, and I'll put in the dates below, opened around the First World War, closed I think in the 40s or 50s. Again, I'll put that in below, and it was rail served off the line here. What I'm going to do now is going to go around to Stretton Sugwas churchyard, have a look at church here, and bring this railway series one here to a conclusion. Oh, just to recap, that's the church. Stretton Sugwas on the left of the screen there, and our railway went underneath the footpath and the road, which is at a higher level there on the left-hand side. Now, being in a rural area, the line was always in competition with the roads. We seen roads 2,000 years ago that were walking on the Roman road earlier in today's video, of course. But road traffic increased, vehicles became cheaper and more efficient, and they were taking the traffic away from the railway all over, but also this one here in Herefordshire. The revenues of the line, being in a rural area, were never great to begin with, but as the traffic decreased, it became less and less profitable to run the line, and sadly the line closed on the 30th of December 1962. Freight continued on for another couple of years, but that some of it was maybe from that ordnance depot and the chemical factory, which was just over there. But it all stopped. It was all in a rural area, and as I say, outside of the city of Hereford. There isn't a lot in between that and the smaller towns of Brecon and Hay, just over the Welsh border. There isn't a lot to see the line either, because obviously it's been ploughed out like you've seen here. I'd like to have seen a little bit more on our walk today, but we did manage to get to see a couple of bridges, and also we had lots of fences as well. And you can definitely see where the Roman road met the track bed there. There was definitely a widening of railway activity in that area, as well as the site of the factory that was over there. Oh, incidentally, I forgot to say that I thought it was like an oil depot over there. It isn't. It's actually a former council tip. And because of the nature of how they did tip operations in those days, the whole site has been completely fenced off. So I would imagine once the chemical works was closed, that the council then took over operations to use it as a dump and infilled the whole thing. And that's why the site is dangerous, and you're not allowed in there anywhere near that area. So if there is any railway remains in there, well, they're long forgotten now, because nobody is allowed in that section there. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this Lost Railway Walks here on West Country Wanderings. There will be another one in this series. Probably have to wait now into the new year, because obviously we've got darker days and more inclement conditions, but we'll see how we go. There might be something coming up from the Forest of Dean, who knows. Click that subscribe and hit the bell, then YouTube will tell you when that video is. There'll also be more radio content. There'll also be heritage lines, and if there's any new stations opens in the West Country Wanderings region, I will bring that to you here as well. Hope you enjoyed it. Take care. All the best now. Bye-bye.